Hello, teams. I am ready to go over the draft introduction section with you, and also just to go over the report in general, as well as the interview process. So let's get started. Okay, so here we are. I've downloaded the report, and I'd like you to download it onto your computer and have whoever, probably the project manager, will be the one who will hold the downloaded report on that person's computer so that that can be submitted for each assignment. Because if you work on this report on a shared doc and then just download the entire doc and submit it, the formatting will be corrupted. So please don't do that. Just copy and paste whatever work that you work on together as a team into this one saved document on your computer. And then that way everything will stay intact. So I'm going to go over that information with you. So here, always start up very easily. We just put information within the brackets and then we delete the brackets. So it's fairly simple. Just go ahead and put your information in, and then it will turn out the company's name will be in bold, and then afterwards you delete the brackets. Now, the reason for waiting to delete the brackets until after you put in the information is that the headings could change. So this way we know that the formatting should stay intact. All right, then the next we put in all the student team's first and last name in here, and then leave everything else the way it is, leave my name there. And then we're going to wait until we've completed the entire case study report before we include the abstract and the keywords. So we do not fill this information in at the beginning. Then we scroll down to the second page and we'll see the strategic planning section. So I just want to show you, like if I put my cursor right on the strategic planning heading, you can see there's a little caret there, which means if I go to styles, it will show up that styles is a heading 1 for this. So if you were to just, sometimes with a Mac, if you just start typing right after the heading, it will, all the narrative will turn into a heading, and you don't want that to occur. So that's why what I've done is I've started the work for you. Now, if you put your cursor right here at the beginning of this paragraph, and then what it tells me is no spacing under styles, as opposed to here, heading 1 for the heading. The other thing I want to point out to you is if I select the line spacing, you will see that the paragraphs are 1.15 separation between them. And the reason for all of this formatting is to have it set up, ready to go to be published. And so we just want to try to keep the formatting neat and the way it is so that it's easy for us, so we don't have to do major reformatting at the end. Now here in the strategic planning section, it's really simple. All we do is fill in, the brackets. We overwrite onto the brackets and delete those brackets. And we just want to put the company name and where the company is located. We just want to include the city or town and the state. And we want to write it out. So if it's Florida, we don't write FL, we spell out Florida. And we spell out the city. So nothing's abbreviated here because this is a formal report. Okay, and then once that's done, we come down to the introduction and background. And I started off the business. Now you can change that if you want. Just be very careful that it stays under no spacing under styles if you do make changes here, that it doesn't revert into a heading. Okay, and then, and you can always tell when it's reverted to a heading because when you put your cursor there, you'll see that little caret on the left. All right, so here is where you're going to do some writing about the background of the business. And what I'd like you to do is when you do your interview is use this template as a guide to ask questions of your business owner. Now, I would like you to either video or audio tape your interview with the business owner, because that way you don't have to be writing the information down as the business owner is providing you with the answers. Instead, you will just ask the questions, You will hear the answers. It gives you an opportunity to ask additional questions or provide some feedback. And then the business owner can maybe provide additional answers for you. But follow this format. So as far as the background, we're really wanting to get information on the company, who the owners are, of course. Now, some of this information you can get from the website, and that's fine to start populating this from the website information, but you also want to talk to them about how they got into business and so forth, right? Maybe do they have employees? How many? What are their positions? That sort of thing. And any other background that you might deem important that you want to include here. Then we go down to the strategic direction. So now here is where we're really asking questions of the business owner. We can ask them, what are your long-term strategies for the business? What are your long-term goals? So if you just ask the question as it relates to the instructions here, then they will give you the audio or video information, and you can fill that in later after the fact. Also, when you're videotaping or audio taping the interview, it allows you to share that information with your teammates that are unable to attend the interview session. So keep that in mind, because all team members need to understand and know what happened during that interview process. So it is important to do that. Now, I know some students have done a Zoom meeting with a business owner, and then they'll record it, and that's one way. Or maybe the other members of the team can join in on the Zoom meeting because they're available during that time. So you'll have to structure that the best you see fit, but it's always good to record the meeting. Of course, ask the owner permission to record it so they know that you're recording them. All right, next. We go down to this. So here we just ask them, what are your long-term strategies? What tactics or what have you done, to start achieving that goal or that strategy? And then you can ask them about their communication strategy. And then if they ask you, well, what do you mean by that? You can say, well, what kind of advertising, promotion, public relations work are you doing? So you can use this as a guide to ask your questions. Now we get down to the implementation strategy. You can ask them that. You can ask them, do you have any kind of, customer service warranties? Any type of, what are you using for retention? You're getting some good information from them. And then we go down to the pricing strategy to find out how they price themselves in the market with other competitors. And then we ask them, do you have a mission statement? Now, they may have it on their website, maybe they don't, but if, we find out what it is, then go ahead and quote them, so put it in quotation marks and then cite the business owner here. It would just be their last name, and then you would add them to your reference list. So then, that this makes it a little easier. Now, they may not have a value statement, or they may not even have a vision statement. So this would give you an opportunity to make suggestions way down at the end when we make our recommendations, not now, but if they don't have one, you would just place that information in here that the owners do not have a vision statement or a value statement or whatever it may be. Okay, so then we move down to the next section. Now we're not completing this for the introduction. All we're completing is the introduction section, but we're asking the business owner all these questions up to the end of the strategy section. So here, the business model canvas, we also want to know from them, do they have a value statement, a value proposition statement? And here we can find out by just filling in the blanks here, like, adding the product name, the value or benefit that they provide to their customer, and describe their customer, who is their customer, and also what type of pain reliever they offer or gain creator. So a little bit different than the value of the benefits. So just keep that, positioned differently. And then you will have this in the business model canvas table at the end of the document. All right, so then next, and of course the business model canvas is very just brief statements. Here we're actually writing narrative in here. So we're writing complete sentences, complete paragraphs. But we're not doing that right now, and we're not doing that until we get into that module but we're asking the questions of the business owner. So we have the information and we will write it as we move along. And as we move along, we will be introduced to other resources to help us in writing these sections as we continue through the course. And then we're asking them about all the other questions, their customer segments, channels, customer relationships, and so forth, all the items of the business model canvas. We go down to the SWOT analysis. We're asking them, how do they view their strengths in their competitive market? So we're getting that information. And what weaknesses do they have? What opportunities do they see? And what threats or do they fear? Right? Or would be available or may be there for them. So we want to ask them those questions so we have that recorded information. All right, so now I'm going to skip the table because we'll be working on that later on. And then we get down to the customer manifesto. We're asking them specific information about the customer manifesto. So when we work in this section, we'll understand this a little bit better, but we just want to get some basic information from them on, how they acquire customers, how do they activate their customers, how do they get their customers to buy product from them, and how do they retain their customers? Do they have a referral program? How does that work? And their revenue. Now, sometimes they won't give you a lot of information on the revenue. That's okay. You get what you can, and then that's it, right? And we'll work on it from there. And then we go down to the next section, which is the customer acquisition cost. Now, this is the last of where we're asking them questions for the interview. Now, they may not be willing to give you a revenue information, and we get that quite a bit. If they don't, that's fine. They don't give it to you. The first line of this paragraph states that you were not able to get the information. If you can get the information, wonderful. Go ahead. The calculation to figure out the customer acquisition cost and the lifetime value of the customer is here. And it makes it very simple for you to just plug in the information. If they don't have the information, of course, you want to leave this in the template so that the business owner could run the information themselves. And that's it for asking for the interview. Now, I will go into the other sections when we get into the revenue streams and that sort of the report, but I don't want to go into that now because I don't want to bog you down. I just want you to stay on topic for the interview and for just completing the very beginning of here for the the draft introduction section, which is just complete the cover page and then just go ahead and complete the few little items right here in the strategic planning, and then the introduction and background. And that is all that you would complete for the draft introduction section. The other items, like I mentioned, you're just asking you questions for the interview for that, so you have that recorded, and then you can write those sections as we move along in the course. If you have any questions or concerns or comments or anything, please reach out to me. I'm very happy to help you in any way that I can. Reach out to me through Canvas inbox, please. That's the best place to reach me. And happy to have a Zoom meeting with you if you're stuck on something, or we can have a telephone call.